I'm going to do a little gay pirate book rec. So if you enjoy Our Flag Means Death and you want more media, specifically books that feel our flag vibes and makes you feel the same gay, wholesome, beautiful characters, lovely wonderfulness, then watch this video because I will go through some book recs that will give you the same big feels as Our Flag Means Death. So let's start this off. I'm going to start with the things that I actually have physical copies of so that I can show them to you. And this is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. And this is a young adult historical novel that is the most delightful thing. It's a trilogy of 3 books. And the main character, Monty, is just such a little, he's very horny, he's very bisexual, he's adorable. And he is madly in love with his best friend since childhood, Percy. And Monty and Percy are living in the 1700s, and Monty's rich and he is going on a grand tour of Europe, and Percy is coming along with him, and he plans on flirting with Percy throughout the entire adventure. Uh, Shenanigans ensue. These boys are so cute. Their love story is so cute. And Monty is he is problematic, adorably problematic. He's not really aware of his privilege, and he learns though, but he's so perfect and no one has to be perfect. Let me fix my microphone because it just went out. Come on, microphone, come back on again. This fun fact, this microphone was broken during Mercury retrograde and it's held together by gaff tape, and it's been serving me well for a number of years ever since. So another book that you might really like is, oh, by the way, let me finish with this recommendation. So Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue is a trilogy. In each section of the trilogy is another one of Monty's siblings. So the second book in the series is Monty's sister, who's asexual, and the third book in the series is his brother, his younger brother, who has like major anxiety. And so it's great because he deals with his anxiety, and it's really good anxiety rep. Anyway, I love these books. They're delightful, even though it's like super, super thick. Like when this book came out, I finished it in a day. I was so excited. The voice is so funny, so adorable, and it's a page turner, and you're just like reading it. You're like, Monty, be better. It's adorable. Okay, so A Marvelous Light by Freya Marske is Victorian era, it might be Edwardian actually, England vibes, but there's magic and people have magical abilities. And it's actually been a little while since I've read this one, so I forget the character's name. As I'm like explaining this, I'm like, actually, I forgot who the characters are in this book, and it doesn't say anything on the back because it has quotes from people. But anyway, these 2 men are in love with each other. Well, they fall in love throughout the course of the book. It's great. I love how one of the men has like a magical disability. Anyway, great book, a page turner. You'll like it. Gay. Both these, if you haven't guessed, very gay. This is young adult, but adults will enjoy it because the characters are so well drawn and the characters are so funny, and you'll love it. And this is more adult. You'll also like Natalie, oh, I almost said her name wrong. Natasha Pulley writes a number of fantasy, historical, gay books. So The Watchmaker of Filigree Street is one, and I didn't put my other one here. but all of her books are good. Check them out. They're really good. I find them really good as audiobooks. So, because she writes very dense, and sometimes it's hard for me to concentrate on how dense she writes. But and I'm not usually an audiobook person, but when you listen to the audiobook, it's easier to follow along with. I also have a couple of nonfiction book recs here, and this is Slumming by Chad Heap. And this is a nonfiction. It's about gay culture and sort of nightlife in the early 20th century. And it's very, very good if you're writing like historical gay stuff and you want a little academic perspective on things and you want to know like what was it really like back then. The nonfiction books will be useful to you. And this is Gay New York, which I love. This another nonfiction book all about gay culture from the like 1890s. I think it says so on the cover. Yeah, 1890s to 1940s. And I think it dispels a lot of myths that, the myths that like there wasn't really gay culture prior to 1970 or whatever. That's gay culture, especially in New York, was thriving. And so this is a really great book to read. Again, if you're writing something that's like historical or an alternate universe thing, and you want to know what was it like to be gay in the 1890s and what was the culture like and how did the mainstream hetero culture react to the gay culture, you'd be surprised, like especially in the 1890s and prior to the 1920s, everyone knew that gay people existed, and there were even gay marriages. So the whole idea that it was like hidden, it was very, very underground. No. Okay. I want to go into these are the books that I have on my Kindle that I don't actually have hard copies of, but I highly recommend them. I'm going to go by author first. So write this down because I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll put up a little graphic. I'm not going to, I'm not going to do that. I will aspire to put up a graphic, but the graphic will not actually happen. So Cat Sebastian is an author who I think this is probably my number one author that you should go to if you're like, I want some gay historical R flag vibes in my bookshelf. Cat Sebastian. She writes tons of historical fiction, all gay, and her characters are so scrumptious and adorable. And she usually has like one soft baby, sweet sugar muffin, sweetie pie, and then one kind of like a little bit harder around the edges sort of character. And I love all of her books. If you just go through her bookshelf of everything that she's ever written, you will have endless enjoyment and entertainment. I'm going to go through my absolute favorites. The Queer Principles of Kit Webb is a 1700s era highway robber gay book, and the R flag vibes on the Queer Principles of Kit Webb are off the charts because it's a fancy man who wants to take up highway robbery, very Stede Bonnet feeling. And then there's like the retired highway robber who kind of wants to get out of it, who's very Edward Teach. And their dynamic is very Steed and Ed, and they are adorable. The sequel is The Perfect Crimes of Marian Hayes, and it's a female protagonist in that case, and it's also extremely just her books are so funny and they're so like the characters are just adorable and it takes you in surprising directions. So I love those two for the 1700s. My probably all-time favorite Cat Sebastian book. It's a very, very short novella, part of like a duology called Peter Cabot Gets Lost. And I actually read this first, but there's another book that comes before it, which is Daniel. No, no, that's the one that comes after. There's one that comes before it, and I forget the name of it, but it will come to me eventually. I'm going through my Amazon list to see. Okay, Tommy Cabot Was Here is the first of the book, first of the duology. Then the second one is Peter Cabot Gets Lost, but I read Peter Cabot Gets Lost first, and it was fine. You could read them out of order. It's fine. No big deal. But what I love about both these books, and actually there's a third one now too, is they're set in, mid 20th century. The family is sort of like a Kennedy's sort of family. That's They're just terrible, political, wealthy family. But the young people in the family are so nice. And so in the case of Peter Cabot Gets Lost, Peter Cabot is so nice. He's such a sweet golden retriever of a character. And he does not want to go home to his family because they are dicks. And so he makes an excuse to drive this kind of lost little Southern boy across the country to California. And this the Southern boy is sort of like a little rigid around the edges. He's very kind of protective of himself. And Peter Cabot is just so very naive, very sweet, but also dealing with like, I hate my family and they stress me out, and trying very hard to not repeat cycles, that generational cycle of trauma. So all the books in the series are so good, but I love Peter Cabot Gets Lost because it's such a fast read. It's a novella. You'll like read it in an afternoon. Huge feelings throughout the whole thing. I love it. A recent one that Cat Sebastian did is We Could Be So Good, which is 1950s newspaper reporter guys. And I love the voice. I love these characters. I'm spending too much time on Cat Sebastian right now, so I'm going to move on to my next author. But hopefully, I gave you some to think about. Really, really great author. I think you can't go wrong with anything that she writes. The next one on my list for you all to read is KJ Charles, who also writes historical gay romance. And I love a book of hers that it was self-published originally, and it got traditionally published more recently. And it's called The Gentle Art of Fortune Hunting, which I would describe it as gay Bridgerton. And the characters, again, so great. One character rough around the edges, one character just super cheerful ray of sunshine, sort of the grumpy sunshine dynamic. Love it. Adorable. Again, it's a super fast read. You'll like read it in an afternoon. Great. I think my favorite like series of hers is this 1920s trilogy called the whole trilogy is called the Will Darling Adventures. The first one's called Slippery Creatures, and it's all from the point of view of this ex-soldier, Will Darling. He's in the 1920s. He's taking over a bookstore from his long-lost relative who died, and he gets entangled in a thriller, spy, mystery situation with a cagey, suspicious character who is a spy and untruthful, but you know that they belong together and they will be in love if they could just work it out. And the whole, I love it because the whole trilogy with of the three books, it's just this one couple. And so you follow them on, like, the first book is like, I think they're going to work it out. And then the second book starts with them like having kind of broken apart and having not talked for a while. And you're like, what happened? And then they get back together again. And then the third one is them really like together and like solving the problem together. I'm going to have to reread them because it's been a little while since I've read them, but they also, you like read them so fast. They're so emotionally engaging and the characters are just so scrumptious. Uh, let us see what else we have. Okay. Alexis Hall, you can't go wrong with boyfriend material. I haven't read husband material yet, but it's English. It's so funny. The characters in this book will make you like, I was like crying, laughing so hard. So Alexis Hall, boyfriend material and husband material, you'll love it. Alison Cochrane, The Charm Offensive, which is like a sort of behind the scenes of the Bachelor sort of show, where the producer is like falling in love with the Bachelor character. And the Bachelor character is like just a little sweet, but I don't want to say dumb, but sweet, but just needs some help. And the producer character is very like, I'm gonna help you. and and their chemistry is just so adorable. And I love it too because the main character is uh vegan, and the producer character is like, I'm going to make sure that you don't have to wear a wool coat and things like that. And I love it. I love it when they're very like sensitive to each other's needs. Okay, the TJ Klune, House in the Cerulean Sea, will also make your heart so big and full with love. And this book, every single person who has ever read this book has fallen in love with this book. It is so midlife, gay, um, magical, caring, nurturing main character who's like taking care of these orphan magical kids, uh, these weird little magical kids. It's so wholesome. The love story between these two middle-aged men just is very Our Flag vibes. And kind of think of it as everything Harry Potter could be if the author wasn't such a dick. Like TJ Klune, you can tell he's a wholesome, nice dude. And so The House in the Cerulean Sea is like that Harry Potter magical feeling, but very, very gay and focusing on the middle-aged, grown-up people who are taking care of these kids, these magical kids. And I love it. It's kind of like Harry Potter if it were gay and told from the point of view of the professors. It's You'll love it. What else? Do. Oh, and then last but not least, Madeline Miller, who writes uh, Greek mythology retellings, and Song of Achilles is probably, it will break your heart and put it back together again and break it again and put it back together again. This is the book that I call the best love story ever written prior to finding out about Our Flag Means Death, because now Our Flag Means Death is the greatest love story ever written. But if Our Flag Means Death that didn't exist, then Song of Achilles would be the greatest love story ever written. If you haven't read it yet, just read it. I won't tell you anything about it, but other than the feels will be big, You will love it. It will become your whole identity, as it did mine. And Circe uh, is also, you'll get the same sort of big feelings from Circe. You'll it's feminist. You'll want to live in Circe's world. You'll want to be Circe's friend. Uh, you it will just make your heart feel soulful and so empowered and so wonderful. So that is my book rec situation. And I hope that you enjoyed watching this. And tune in tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific time, because we're going to have Gay Pirate News Hour, and it's going to be much more scripted and structured than this little piece of shenanigans that I just had. I hope you will join me and Tessa and Ringa as we go through a month of gay pirate fandom news in 1 hour and keep you updated and informed about everything that's going on in our Flag Means Death world. Alrighty. This has been fun, y'all.